Hi, guys. Who do we have? It has been a crazy day. I was going ballistic because my pets were being a really... Hi, Sam. Sam the man. How are you? I don't know if you guys have pets, but suffice to say we have too many. It was kind of like a COVID brain fog that me and my husband did it for the kids. Hi, Moni. Moni or Moni? Either way, it's all good. Do you guys have any questions? You're the first ones here. I have multiple screens up, which I was going to just continue doing what I was doing if nobody showed up. But hi, Sal. Salvatore, Emma. Oh, you love your cats? We have 3 dogs and 3 cats and 3 birds and 3 tortoises and a snake. And I'd say 1 cat and 3 dogs really ticked me off. They're a little spoiled, and that's all our fault for sure. Oh, well, I'm glad to see you're here, Moni. That's great. If you have a question, just pop it up. I have a cold, so I have my tissues over here. I may occasionally have to wipe my nose. I don't even get it. I had the whole thing that everybody got. It ran through our house around Christmas time, I think. Yeah, like smack on Christmas. But, you know, I was kind of thinking, I'm good for the winter. Not so much. I guess not. I was working in Perry County early part of the week. Well, earlier than today anyway, last weekend. So I wasn't even around like germs, but I wonder if I tell my husband I caught it from him because he was there. He's still there. Or, oh, hi, Deb. It's not a big deal. It's just a cold. It's just annoying because I'm all nasally and runny nose and all that business. So anyway, come on, you guys have to have some sort of questions. How about that? Did you guys see, and I don't even plan on going into it now unless there's really going to be no questions. Figured I would tag it on the end and try not to go as long as I did last week. But I was trying to get to everybody's questions, so nobody's really left out. But I think fairness kind of dictates that it's the people that come in first with questions that, what's up, Snacks? You're 45 years old. Yeah, you're a younger person. It's not the end of the world, though, SS-wise. Hi, Trish. I was just telling everybody, Trish, I have a bit of a cold, so I sound a little funny, so just excuse me. I am actually working on a couple briefs right now. Well, focusing on one at the moment, my first one, but I had the other one up earlier, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, and all that business, to get at least the one out, and then maybe the other one will come out in the next week or so, to the judge. Snacks, you have lumbar stenosis. I'm sorry about that. I know that's it can be painful. 45 is tough, though. So remember to focus a lot on, not just that aggressively, but, I tend to see they put people at sedentary, at least, and at under 50, sedentary means you can work, unless there are other reasons why you can't. Snacks. So maybe in whatever way, trying to, it's not always. I've had 40-somethings that have had surgeries that are like not working, and they prove, like, the medical evidence shows that it's kind of like failed surgeries. I hope that's not happening to you, because that's really troublesome, for the months and years ahead, potentially. But like, they always kind of fit. There was always something about sit-stand option jobs too, right? Snacks. So like, if you say I can't sit for long because of my lumbar stenosis, and I can't stand and walk long because of my lumbar stenosis, it hurts, and all that kind of business. But then they have these jobs that are sit-stand option jobs. So they're like, oh, well, this job you can stand up whenever you want and sit down whenever you want. Who said not yet? Snacks. They said what? Not yet. Oh, no surgeries. Moni says, I want to create a GoFundMe, but learn that it's counted towards unearned income. My question is, should I put this in some type of trust, or will the spend down method work for me? Moni, that makes me think that you are SSI. Is that correct? Your Supplemental Security Income, the welfare program, not the Social Security program. If you can clarify that, I could probably. I know you have, okay, you have Medicaid that is suggestive of SSI, but not always. Sometimes there's people that can't get SSI, but they're on SSD because their SSD is a little bit more than the SSI, but it's still low enough for Medicaid. So should I work my jewelry business once a month? I need access to Medicaid. I can't speak to you about the Medicaid too much because every state is different. The doctor, Snacks, said that you're not ready for surgery, but you think you are. And get a second opinion, perhaps, right? But surgery isn't going to mean that you're disabled under 50 either, or over 50. It's there's no like can of something that if you just have that can of something, you know what I mean? It really varies quite a bit. I'm trying to fix this. You're in Florida, Moni. I see that. Yes, that's the applicant. Okay. Yeah, Moni, GoFundMe is money is income. And it is unearned income. So yeah, dollar for dollar after the first $20, it's going to count against SSI. Medicaid, I mean, yeah, Florida might be different. You know, the rules vary. In some places, you can get it just by breathing, even if you're not disabled. Some, you know, you could work. Some places are like, no, only if you're disabled. Some are like, well, we'll look at to see whether you're disabled. While some other states are like, we're not going to look, but if you get SSI, then we know you are. You know, some are easier than others, and some flat out just give it to everybody. So, you know, but yeah, but Moni, the GoFundMe, you know, unless it's you're still going to be under the SSI limit after the first $20, including all other income you have, is going to count against your ability to get SSI or the amount of it. So let's say you only did $500 a month, Moni. That might be under if you're not working your business and making money. Remember also when you're self-employed with a business, you have to look at your hours. You know, some people could say, well, I only make $500 a month SSA, but they're actually working 40 hours a week. They're doing bookkeeping. They're doing this. They just don't have a really good product perhaps, but their work activity is something that would be 40 hours a week. They're just not earning a lot of money from it because their business hasn't taken off yet. That could be a real problem. And that would be true of SSD people too. All right, let me scroll back up here. Salvatore, I'm on SSD and plan to retire in Italy. If SSA hits me with a CDR, can I do all that overseas? I believe you can. You know, look up your whatever the SSA location is for people in Italy. I was consulting with a guy in Switzerland, and the closest office, I guess they do things by mail, but things must be slow, right? Kind of like U.S. Postal Service, slow. Europe isn't far different, I suppose. Switzerland, and his issue was something different, but his nearest office was in Paris, France. So it wasn't like he could go walk into his office. And apparently they don't answer the phone any better than our guys do. So, you know. Let's see. Daryl Smith. Hi, Daryl. Hi, back at you. You're 59. You are a disabled veteran. I have a lot of side effects of medications. Do I need to send in my medical records and send into SSA? Daryl, if you filed and you told them about each and every provider, they're supposed to order those for you. Assuming, well, even if you have an attorney, they're supposed to do their part. If you don't have an attorney, you're not really going to be able to see whether they've done their part because you can't get into that file. You can call the adjudicator a lot to find out, I suppose, and try to speak with him or her. But they're supposed to order the stuff you tell them about, and you're supposed to tell them about everyone you treat with and have treated with in the relevant time period behind you. Art of practice. This is a kind of an interesting question. What are the qualifications for less than sedentary for someone under age 50? It's a rare one that the SSA will find that. Even ALJs don't seem to want to find that, even though we know there's a lot of times someone is in reality not. It means you're not able to do exertionally over sedentary, but you can't even do sedentary because you can't sit that long or sit stand, that option thing I was referring to earlier. So that would be like less than sedentary. No, I can't even do a sit down job for 6 out of 8 hours. And it's really hard to get them to buy that. It seems like there's such a mantra about everyone can do sedentary, even if they are completely in pain and, all that kind of stuff. So I argue it. I put it in my argument as an alternative, kind of the one I believe in, but judge, if you're only going to go with sedentary, here's how we win anyway. Only because I know what they're prone to do. Oh, my eyes keep watering. I'm like, trying to read this. Should I put the GoFundMe money in the trust to purchase a wheelchair? If you're going to set up a special needs trust, yes, you could potentially do that. You're going to need to confer with a very specialized special needs trust drafter. Usually it's a trust attorney that specifically knows how to do the special needs trust for SSI, because it's not like any old trust. There's certain rules about it, because it's got to be that you actually can't get into that trust of one of many things. The spend down method, that's to get rid of a corpus of something that you have. If you get money in, Moni, when we're talking about SSI, everybody, for anyone who just came in later, if you're filing for SSI and you have a GoFundMe page, your every dollar that you get in that month is going to be countable. Aside from that first little freebie 20 that they ridiculously give you, since it's only 20 and it's been 20 for decades and decades, that limit. So you can't, you're going to be, even if you spend it, it doesn't matter. It was still income that month. Now, if you, and you'll lose on the income, unless it's, like I said, only like $500 a month and you have no other income. While you're, they're not going to, they won't even take an application if they think that your income's too high. So, or if your resources are too high. So it's a tough one. Diane. Oh, I should be popping these up. Sorry, guys. I'm going to pop Diane's up. Hi, Diane. I have 38 credit hours and now have to stay home to take care of disabled adult child. How will this affect my SS or claiming half my husband's SS? Okay, Diane, it's not going to affect claiming half your husband's SS if you're talking about spousal benefits when he files and triggers dependent benefit availability when he's retired, and you also become at least 62. Those two things co-join. Or you have a disabled adult child. When your husband claims, if you are still caring for that disabled adult child, you might be able to get a caretaker benefit off of his. 38 credit hours. I don't know how robust your work history was, and it sounds like you're not disabled, but you're just worried about your future retirement, Diane. You just need 2 more to at least have something in your own name. And that's 2 over whenever. If you're not looking to be insured for SSD, which you don't seem to mention, so let's knock on wood that never happens to you where you become disabled yourself. But if you can muster out 2 more credits, it could be through self-employment work, Diane. It could be house sitting. That's only, where are we at now? Is it 1810 a credit for 2025? I believe so. I could look it up. Give me a second, guys. Of course, it's never easy to find them fast. I think it's 1810 or 1820. My brain's a little slow right now. Probably this cold. But anyway, if you do that twice, Diane, you'll have your 40 credits. You might not be insured for Social Security disability, so don't become disabled, but at least you'll have your 40 credits for some sort of benefit for you on your own work record later on. And then, of course, you still have those other options with being a caretaker of a disabled adult child if you remain so, and also spousal benefits. Those are for people that didn't earn their own or didn't earn very much. So those things will still be available to you. If you have an impairment considered by the SSA, do they still use, I'm putting up, I believe, Deanna? Am I saying that right? Thank you for being here. Hope you're having a good day. Okay, if you have an impairment considered by the SSA, do they still use the grid system if you are 6 months from advanced age? So by advanced age, you mean you're like 54 in 6 months? And you're 6 months away? I don't know that the lower levels will do that. And I don't know that 6 months is close enough for an ALJ to do that. But if you're at the lower levels, by the time you get to an ALJ, you will probably actually be advanced age, 55 and above. Or yeah, I mean, I usually tend to see it, and I can't speak for all other, areas and all judges and all that, but I tend to see it at 2 to 3 months before the age. Do I think they could go up to 6 months? I'd have to see if there's any recent indications of how far they'll go. But I do tend to see it kind of on a shorter reign than that. T Cash. Hi, T Cash. IK, is that I know? I know someone jumped on SSDI for anxiety and depression. Been working 1099 for the last 9 years, making over 40K. How is this possible? Oh, he's probably had to do reports as to his hours. And if he's making 40,000, but his hours do not suggest he's working full time and that he could not. And by the way, the 40K, if that's his revenue, 1099, by the way, guys, tells us that he's self-employed. He happens to have a big client that he does work for that wants to be able to write off what they pay him because it's something they can write off as a business expense. So they give him the 1099, so they have their expense write off, and they're not taxed on one of their business expenses, which is him. If the 40K is his gross revenue from that job, that's what his 1099 says. You got to subtract out all the business expenses that he has. Business office, like a home office, mileage if he's driving anywhere. If he needs internet, boom. Mileage is a huge one. When we drive around like that, burns through business income like no tomorrow. I mean, it's actually really is really helpful for people who are self-employed. So that 40K could easily pop down to, whatever his margin is. I don't know what he's doing. Is he selling stuff? I mean, it really depends. Then you'd have cost of goods sold. Yeah, I mean, it really depends on his tax return. Now, if he didn't file a tax return and the SSA through the IRS found out that someone had said they paid him wages of $40,000 and he didn't write anything off, he'll be taken off for sure. Unless, again, of course, it was some sort of subsidized work, but I'm finding that hard to believe. I would also say I don't think he actually jumped on SSDI for anxiety and depression. And he probably didn't win for anxiety. And I don't know his age. I don't know his vocational profile. But there's probably a lot of things under the surface of him that you are unaware of. That is 99.9% what it is. But again, if he is working full time, the hours alone can get him to be deemed to be earning over SGA, even if his net income from self-employment is not over SGA. That's when we talk to people about working. God, this is really annoying me. Working, self-employed, or on the books, but particularly self-employed. They have rules on the amount of hours you're working, because I know self-employed people can somewhat have the authority to fudge with their numbers. You know, you can write off things, you can not write off things, so, depending on what he did. But if they saw 40,000 and that was his bottom line, he's over. So there must be something more going on that you're not aware of, which is not unusual. And it gets people a little upset when they say, oh, he's making 40K. He's probably revenuing in 40K, and he's probably netting, 15, 16K, which is under SGA. But again, if his hours are 40 hours a month, that's a problem. I would say that would probably be a cessation reason. Assuming he's not lying about it, in which case he's committing fraud. All right, this is Kitty. Hi, Kitty. How are you? Nice to see you. Could you give a rough idea on attorney's fees for an appeal to appeal them stopping SSDI? So I won't be getting a lump sum since I've already been on it. I recently had a CDR after 16 years. It did not go well. Oh, well, you're appealing it. Okay, and you're looking for a CDR attorney. They're hard to find. I used to do them, but the SSA doesn't make it very easy. So the attorney can't charge a fee. He can't decide the fee. Only the SSA can decide the fee. So it's really hard to say. Now, he'll have to do what he'd probably do is, if it were me, I'd be taking a retainer. Remember the fee petition amounts, since it wouldn't be by fee agreement and the 25%, because like you said, you've been collecting it, and I assume you're still collecting it pending your appeal. You did that 10-day letter. The cap of 9,200 doesn't, I think it's like 15,000 when it's a fee petition. Now, I don't think an attorney is going to require a $15,000 retainer, but they could easily they could do what they want, and you either buy it or you don't. But I think 5,000 is probably reasonable. They might go up to 9,200. I don't know about others, but I had always voluntarily capped the rare fee petition we had to do. I always had it in my agreement that I would be capping my, if we had to go to fee petition for whatever reason, that I would cap my fee petition at the lower of whatever the hours added up to, or the 9,200 that is only applicable to the fee agreement, just so that the person knew that there was this cap that they could, it's not going to change just because the SSA rule suddenly doesn't let you use your fee agreement you had on the 25%. But I don't know that anybody else does that. That's just something I did from the start, like 20 years ago. But I would expect to pay a retainer, and that's because there is no SSA, if they prevail in your case, to withhold 25% from your case, since you're going to be collecting it the whole time, and then pay the amount to the attorney. So he's going to want that in his trust account, so that when he prevails, he can collect it right out of there. And it's as long as he gets the written approval from the SSA, and then any balance in there, if the SSA award is less, would go back to you. Hope that helps. Trish. Hello, Trish. How do they evaluate your RFC if you have a remote onset date of 8 years ago and can prove disability began before DLI? Same as always. Medical records are military and VA and a couple civilian neurologists, 43 then, now 50. The RFC is not based on age. It's based on what you can do, what your capacity is, right? So they're going to figure it out the same way as if you're, they're going to look at the stuff and the stuff that existed when someone was 43. What do those records say at that time? Or what if they said the person could do sedentary work, then he loses at 43, up until 50. And if he, unless he otherwise meets a listing or something like that. And as you go up at 50, suddenly they're going to say, oh, see, we had him that he was limited to sedentary and he can't do his prior work. And his skills from his prior work, which probably doesn't even still exist, right? It's more than 5 years ago. Skills from the prior work are not transferable. So then he might prevail at 50. But if his DLI is before 50, that's where it's really difficult, because you have to prove it with the age where the evidence existed at that age, to prove an RFC that would work with that age. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So 43, whatever RFC he had at 43. Whoops. I'm clicking things all over the place here. Whatever he had at 43, whatever the medical records were, what is his RFC? Does your RFC work for 43? It doesn't, or it does. And then so on and so forth. 43 to 50 or 49 and 364 days is going to about be the same. But the evidence might have gotten better to show that he couldn't do that sedentary job. So, any sedentary job. Because remember, it's not just prior work at that age, it's all other jobs too. It's a very, very steep mountain, guys. Okay. I see what you're saying, Diane. You haven't worked in 5 years. You'd have no past relevant work. But again, 2 credits. I think that was yours, right, Diane? 2 credits, and at least you have your 40 lifelong credits, which is for retirement. Doesn't mean you're going to get a big retirement benefit in your own name, but the beauty of that, too, is your child remains a disabled adult child. You and he will not have to be sharing so much of the spouse's work record benefit amount. That family max that you would be taking when you take off of your spouse. Now, if you have your own, whatever it is, let's say you have $800 on your own, that would be paid to you first. Any balance that you would due as a spouse would be paid out of the spouse's family max. But sometimes that bumps into disabled adult child's benefit. And then he has to take a little bit less. And, so the beauty of having your own work record is that now you have a bigger pot where you can pay yourself and not take so much from the other. Okay. Hi, Daryl. Again, I did apply for SSDI. I do have a lawyer. Will my VA disability hurt me for SSDI? No, I don't think so at all. Sometimes it doesn't help. It depends, but often it does. Those records are very relevant. We just had a video on a new circuit court case that just because the SSA doesn't have to swallow the VA rating and the finding of disabled hook, line, and sinker, because they have different definitions and all that, and plus everything should be evaluated anyway, they do have to consider all of your VA medical records, and you want to make sure they get up there. So I'm glad you have a lawyer. So he or she will help you with that. And you're welcome for the videos. Thanks for visiting. Okay. Hi, Deb. I'm going to pop you up. Wait, in order for someone to receive DAC, one of the parents already has to be collecting benefits, right? Yes. Child in care, Deb, would end at 16, except if it's a DAC child, because they're a dependent. And if the person needs care, then as I understand it, if the other parent is staying home to care for that child just as they would for a minor child, that parent can get the child in care, because the DAC doesn't depend on being 16. In fact, DAC is to whenever, right? In fact, DAC doesn't even start at 16. It starts at 18. So, yeah. T-Cash, I think we're talking about your... Oh, it's gig work. The IRS has been after him for 7 years for non-filing, but the SA still doesn't know. Well, I don't know why people allow people to commit fraud. I'm not saying we need to be the fraud police, but sometimes, I don't know, guys. He's not filing, and they know about it because he has a 1099, because the person who pays him the 1099, I wonder if the SSA, you say the SSA doesn't know. I don't know how you would know that. Does that mean they've never sent him an 820, maybe? I don't know. The IRS has not been reporting anything for him potentially. So I don't know what to say. Fraud is fraud, though. We see that on the Friday Fraud Law Review videos. Larry wants to know, how many hours can I work while receiving SSD at minimum wage? I'm going to give you the equation, Larry. Take your minimum wage, or take SG. Gosh, I'm going to look up these numbers, guys. I don't want to say. I have a huge list of pages. All right, so let's look at the SGA table. All right. Well, you're not going to see it, but I see it. So if you are earning $1,620, Larry, $1,620 a month, you are now working SGA. So if you take, let me see, my phone might have a calculator. If you take the $1,620 that you're allowed to make per month, I mean, don't reach that amount. So don't touch $1,620, because that is SGA. So what I tend to do with people is $1,620, I'm putting it in my calculator, divided by, what is minimum wage, guys? Is it still 7? Depends what state you're in, obviously. So you have to be more specific. Let's say it's $7.50, and I'm not saying that's what it is, but federally, I'm just going by federal, but you have to look at whatever you're making, equals 216. That means 216 hours per month you can work. Now, there's 4.3 weeks to the month on average. So I use that. That doesn't make sense. I must have pressed something wrong. 1620. Whatever the minimum wage is and the hours you're doing, Larry, you do not want to touch 1620. I suggest you don't even flirt with it. Don't dance by that line, because invariably you're going to go over. So let's try that again. 7.5. Divided by, so basically 50 hours a week. So if we do 50 hours a week, now this is ridiculous, right? Because if you do that, you're going to be booted for being able to work full time. So this is where you have to tread so easily. 50 hours a week times minimum wage of $750 equals $375 a week times 4.3 weeks gives you $612. You're just under SGA. However, you cannot work 50 hours a week and not expect to be booted off of SSD, because you're not disabled if you can work 50 hours a week. You follow? So I always suggest 20 is the high end of part-time work while on SSD. And often I want to see people doing less. And obviously you only do it if your income level, the hourly wage supports it. Okay. So I would put yourself at 20 or under hours, but there's so many other things, Larry, like the kind of work you're doing. Is it inconsistent with your disabilities? You know, if you have a bad back, are you working at a farm lifting bales of hay? You know, that is going to sink your ship, in my opinion. High risk. So it really depends on what you're doing. If you're doing something genteel, or, you know, you have to really look at the nooks and crannies of that job you're doing and do your math. Do the math like I just kind of explained. I don't know if I made it clear. I mean, there's like bottom rules. Like I say, don't go over 20 hours. Never come near 1620. Do the math and figure out how many hours you can work to follow both those things. You know, let's say you say, all right, I'll do 20 then. I'll go to the max. The max times, and you're saying minimum wage $7.50 an hour. That's only $150 a week times 4.3 equals $645 a month. You're way under SGI. Way, way, way. Your hours are not like completely like under 10 or at 10. They're up to 20. But still, that's usually not really crazy scary to go 20. When people start going 25, 28, then they start looking, they could hit 32. And some people consider 32 to be full time. Okay. Ellie Noir, thank you. Good to see you. Let's see. Furry plants and coins. Yep, she's just helping Larry there with the old $16.20 a month for gross wages. Well, it doesn't go by hours, Furry, but SGA can be work you do that you're not paid for. So the hours do matter, actually. It's just a little more nebulous. Because remember, at minimum wage, he's not even hitting it at 40 hours a week. But they're going to cancel him if he's working 40 hours a week. You see? So that's when SGA is a flat amount of $16.20, but it's also, but is the work activity you're doing suggesting you can work full time? Oh, gee, you're working 40 hours. You are working full time. So you see what I'm saying? And I think he was just looking for the math to be done. That was the impression I got. How many hours can I work? Standard SGA while making minimum wage. All right, time fire. Am I saying that right? Let's put you up there, pal. If there's been a lapse in treatment when CDR comes, but you're working on finding help medically, what is the best course of action? Well, it doesn't take that long to get into a PCP, right? Usually, even if you go to one of those, I don't know, clinics, maybe that would be the first place to jump into. But the lapse is going to be, the scary part. We always say, don't let it lapse, guys. I know people are like, oh, I'm done. Yay. Life goes on. It does, but, you're going to look like you're not disabled. What you're working on to find help medically, that's not really going to help you unless there's something in there medically, in my opinion. But going to do you go to your primary care? Do you find that you have to go to the emergency room because you're not treating and, you have these issues that come up, or an urgent care or an ER? All those things count, not as good as if you had taken, I don't know, Medio, I don't know if it's you, but I think one of the optics of not following through is now suddenly it's like, see, when he wasn't looking for the SSD, suddenly his disabilities are not very troubling. That pain isn't so bad. He's not going to that pain management or whatever. So you always got to think about the optics, guys. I think it's one of the biggest things. I really do. Just get on there, get to a clinic, get to wherever you got to go to, and they might be able to refer you too. Oh, I wanted to touch on what Furry just said. She talked to Larry about, Larry, that's for SSDI. SSI is different. SSI is actually not different when it comes to SGA. And you can actually generally, in fact, if you even do the math, watch this, 1620 minus the $65, which is still abhorrent that they have not applied a COLA to that, of earned income that won't count, minus 65 equals, I hope I'm doing my math right here, guys. I used to be a math person. 1555. And if I divide that by 2, oh yeah. So just to clarify, if an SSI person is making 1,620, let's say it's 1,619, so he's not above SGA, what part is going to offset his SSI? Only about 777 of it. Because when you're working for your income, they give you the blessing of not offsetting the whole thing like unearned income on SSI. So there's plenty of people making money while on SSI. They get the reduction to their SSI accordingly, but they certainly end up with more money because he's getting the 15, what do we say, 1619, and while $777 of his SSI is going to be reduced, that's still another almost $200 of SSI that he gets to keep. So now his total income between the two is about $1,600 plus $200 is $1,800 a month on SSI. So, they do encourage you to work. Now, again, you have to always be and I know someone doesn't like the terminology, be mindful and careful, but that's exactly what you have to be if you're working while collecting benefits, because you want to make sure your treatment continues, because you're going to be CDR'd. When they know you're working, they're going to take a closer look at your work. You're going to get an 820 or an 821. So you want to make sure you're not doing work that conflicts with your disability. But aside from that, and if it does, and you're not disabled anymore, that's one thing. But the SSA, some people will say, let's face it, the SSA, puts these rules in so they'll try to work because they want to get people off of SSD or SSI. I don't think it's as insidious as that. If someone is able to work and therefore is not technically entitled to be, collecting an insurance benefit or collecting the welfare, that's the people that they, don't want to be taking from those programs because it detracts from the rest of you, that are or should be on it. They're not trying to trick truly disabled people, into screwing up. The rules are all out there. So, I know people say, oh, the SSA wants to, trick people into get. I don't think that's true at all. The people that work for the SSA wouldn't have a job if nobody was on it. So I don't think that's true at all. But they do have a responsibility to not be handing it out to people who are no longer disabled from all jobs. Okay. Rant over. All right. So this is Dominique. Hi, Dominique. Thanks for being here. What does it mean to have limitation but not severe enough? A lot of impairments cause us to be slightly limited in something. I mean, probably every worker out there has something. I mean, short for maybe unless you're maybe 20 years old and don't have a single impairment, by the time we're 30, we have something going on. I mean, minor. It's called old age deterioration. It just happens. Or it could be a minor injury or something. Maybe you broke your arm and you can't flex it as much as you otherwise could. That's an impairment and a limitation. It might eliminate, 5 occupations that require that you stick your arm out straight, and you can't. But that wouldn't be a severe enough limitation to win your disability because there's thousands and thousands of other jobs you can do, notwithstanding that impairment. So that's what they mean. Like, you can have an impairment and even it's limiting in some ways, but not in ways that are going to take away all jobs. Okay. Okay. Four grandbabies. You got 4 grandbabies. That's awesome. Can my 62-year-old husband may apply for SSDI? Can you still collect SS at 62? I'm not sure. You're saying, can you collect at 62? Oh, all right. I think I know what you're trying to say. He's old enough to collect early retirement because he's 62, right? Can he also instead, or in addition to, file for both? Yes, he can. I have a video on that. A lot of people stop working and collect early retirement because they no longer can do their job, and they're having maybe troubles getting another job. But the reason why they can't do their old job is because of their impairments. Their old job is just too much. They might take early retirement, which is a big hit to the amount, and it's a permanent one for the rest of your life. So if they are impaired, I always suggest that they look into SSD, because if they prevail on the SSD and meet the criteria you need to meet at age 62 for Social Security disability, they will not have to be stuck with that early retirement 35% cut to their benefit. Now they get the full amount, and it's called SSD, but it's same as the full amount of their Social Security retirement had they been able to hold out till age 66 or 67 or whatever it is for them. And once, so they'll start collecting the full amount at 62 under Social Security disability instead of early retirement. And they will also then get Medicare within, by the time they, when they collect up to 24 months of benefits, whether it's retroactive, partially or not, or 24 months in the future, whenever that 24 months of benefits hits their wallet, they will be eligible for Medicare. And that looks like it would be before your husband has to wait till 65, which he would be otherwise eligible anyway based on age. and not being disabled. All right, I hope that helped. Okay, Nikki. Hi, Nikki's World. How are you? Hi, so I'm getting the benefits while my case is pending for SSI. What happens with the freeze? Nothing happens with the freeze. I was going to talk about this later. There's been a lot of fake news and clickbait people out there. I mean, I'm talking YouTubers. I'm talking legacy media. I'm talking so big outlets, or what used to be big and now they're kind of dwindling. I'm talking politicians who have been, I have to assume, purposely misspeaking. If you're talking about the federal financial aid freeze, it's only to foreign countries, things of this nature. Foreign countries we've been sending our money to while people here have been starving. It applies to NGOs that are taking money. They just had one particular NGO was getting, it was some sort of bizarre, I'm going to mix it up. So I'm not going to mention that NGO, because then there's this other one where they found 50 million was about to go out for condoms to Gaza, because apparently that seems more important than $50 million to, I don't know, homeless veterans or SSI folks, maybe to raise that $2,000 limit, or, go figure. I don't get it. But anyway, the SSI, Medicaid, SNAP, food stamps, anything directly given to you by the federal government is not changing. What is getting temporarily paused, and I think they did the pause, and some are already receiving again because they've shown that they are legit, I suppose. Those are the things that are going to be frozen. So nothing with Social Security, nothing with Medicare, Medicaid, SNAP, anything like that. Okay? I don't know what benefits you're getting while your case is pending for SSI, but power to you. Okay. John Columbus, what are you talking about here? New York. You're my neighbor. Let's see. Hi, John Columbus. Am I saying that right? Good afternoon. I live in upstate New York and have ALJ hearing coming up. Good luck to you on that one. SSA recently advised me that hearing will be out of Florida, not New York. Is this normal, or should I be concerned about the change? I wouldn't be concerned. I've had a judge out of Puerto Rico do one of my cases in Connecticut. So they use judges wherever, and that's the beauty of the video system. If your office, where your typical territory is overloaded and you could be waiting another year for your hearing, they do often, half my head's disappearing. Very strange. They do often, I don't know what that's about. It's that filter thing. They do often direct them to like a support set of ALJs that will pick up some hearings to get them done faster. And I've never seen, for me, I can only speak for myself, I've never seen a bad result from that in terms of, the out-of-staters give worse rates. It's not so. I think, and if you think about it, if they started to do that, then people would be complaining about them being able to put the cases and get that support and get that caseload handled faster and get your so I think it would be, they've probably been lectured on, don't give worse rates than you already do, because it would just have severe backlash. People would be following up on that, I think. So no worries, and good luck on your case, John. Oh, you're welcome, John. Okay. You're welcome, Trish. Okay, 4 grandbabies, I see you again. Which one would you take at 62, early retirement or finally apply for SSDI? The disability has been for about 25 years. Just couldn't afford to do it then. Please, any suggestions? Well, the disability of a disabling nature hasn't gone on for 25 years if he worked during those 25. So I think it's Sure, barring something weird, like I can't take this dress of falling for SSD, it'll kill me, which that would be unfortunate. I think it is, or maybe you're just super wealthy and you don't need the 35% that you're going to get cut if you take early retirement. I absolutely think you should file for both. I mean, if you file for both, you might not get an attorney to help with the SSD because there's going to be very little way for him to get paid a reasonable amount. But if you can hold off and not file for the early retirement at 62, hold off and fight for the SSDI. Might be a little bit of a time pass, so it depends on what you can afford. That if you want to have a lawyer help you to make sure to give you the better chance of winning, of prevailing, getting your evidence in right, and following up on certain legal advice that makes your case much stronger, you could do that. But even if you don't, if you're filing on your own, I would definitely file for both. I mean, I just think you work for that insurance, the SSD insurance. That's a component of your Social Security. Retirement's a component, SSD is a component. You work for it, he paid in for it. I would do both. That's what I would do. I would do both, or I would do one, for sure. I mean, now I'm misspeaking, right? I would definitely file for disability regardless of whether you file for early retirement. Okay? All right. And the people are trying to throw numbers out there to help Larry, I think it was. Snacks, I don't get this. You say, for mental, did they take into consideration a mother and daughter disability? I don't even know what that means. I'm sorry. They go on the individual, not everybody else. Oh, Ellie. Or Elle, sorry. You know, my daughter's middle name is Ellie. Did I tell you that, Elle? I think we met before. Named after her great-grandmother on my husband's side, who recently passed. She was great. She lived to the ripe old age of 96. Okay. 2 weeks ago, you received a letter. My claim in non-medical review. Yeah, we hate those. Was that a digital letter, I assume? Elle? Like you didn't get it in the mail, right? Paying bills. Notice a payment from SS. Checked SS. Government site. It said approved. Woo! Congratulations. That's awesome. That's exactly what you want. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Furry, you're talking about 29 hours a week. I think someone who's on disability or fighting for it, working 29 hours a week, could raise some eyebrows. They don't have a firm line on it, though. But you really want to be careful of those optics because you're going to see in an ALJ denial, if you get denied, that he was already able to work about 30 hours, you know. So you gotta tread carefully with those hours, guys. DJ, nice to see you. I think I saw you last week, right? No, Furry. SSI did not get cut. No. And this is all that false stuff, guys. It's driving me crazy. Do not believe the false stuff you see. Come to the side of information. There are better sources of information. Okay, where are we at? Diane. Is there a question in here? Let's see. Your husband collects under 1,000. Okay, that was SS, right? Wondering if getting 2 more credit hours will make any difference. The amount I paid to SS was really low. I was a stay-at-home mom. I don't know about DAC. Well, you can't get DAC, Diane. That would be your child, you said, right? So if your husband collects under 1,000 in Social Security, that's a pretty low amount. As a spouse, you would get 500 unless you're splitting it with a DAC, in which case you might both get 250, because the family max might be 1,500, and your husband's already collecting 1,000 of it. I think you definitely want to get those 2 more credits because, and by the way, if you download your earnings statement, Diane, from login.gov, your earnings statement, that's where they house them now. You will see what your estimate is. Oh no, it's going to say you don't see. Once you get the 2 credits, it'll tell you. Shoot. You could maybe use one of those calculators on the SS site. There's a variety of calculators. Let's say you plug in, when you get your SS statement, it's going to show you all your work years. Take those numbers, plug them into the calculator. Add, say, 2 more years at your most recent work years. Maybe, or maybe like throw in like 5,000 a year or something like that for 2 years or even 1 year. And then see, because there's benefits estimates and you can see what your estimate might be as to the amount, you would get if you had that. It's ballpark, but it might be interesting. What if they say you're going to get $900? Wouldn't it be nice for you to have 900, your husband to have 1,000, and your child to get 500, all in one household? You could pay more bills that way. So something to think about. And you paid in for 38 credits. Not, the most robust worker in the world. I get it. You were a stay-at-home, disabled child for sure. But you did pay in. So wouldn't you want to just get over that little hump to collect? I don't know. Maybe you're wrong. I just feel like everyone who worked hard, for however a period of time, if they have a benefit coming to them and they just have to do a little climb over the hill to get it, might be worth it. I don't know. Okay, we have Moni. I received a call from SS earlier and they asked when I last worked. I haven't filed my taxes since 2020. Ooh, fee. And have 1099s with mileage to add. Do I need to get this taken care of? Yeah. You're potentially in problems with the IRS. I'd rather, I look at it this way. And we've all been late on our taxes, right? Well, probably not everybody, but some of us. Get it straightened out. The pain will be less. And if I forget where you're at in this whole thing. Are you fighting for SSD? Reporting income and paying the taxes on it, like not writing down your 1099 so far that you're paying 0 in taxes because you don't feel like paying the taxes. I get that. I like to keep money in our pocket. However, consider that you're not going to get earnings credits. Your DLI, if you have one, is not going to be extended out any further. I mean, there's a lot of ramifications to that. And I definitely wouldn't, not that you were suggesting this, of course, be very frank with the SSA as to when you last worked, because they're going to see, eventually those 1099s are going to come haunt you, I don't know when, but, and then you could have bigger problems. So I would do it. And then if you're filing, you're going to probably be able to utilize those credits that you earn, unless you write off every single thing you can until there's nothing to pay taxes on, but you will not have those credits. And that could be stabbing yourself in the foot. It really depends. You might want to get a consult on that. You want to look at where the credits fall. What, if you're fighting a case, if you're already disabled, not the same thing, but you might have other issues here. I don't think you are. It sounds like you're in the middle of a case, because you're going to want to protect your DLI, because if you don't prevail on this particular claim, or it takes a long time and then you are not insured and they find out that you are disabled, but lo and behold, it's after your DLI ran out because you didn't report those and pay taxes on that income, you're gonna regret it. Sometimes I think it's better to pay the piper, certainly, to earn your credits and, keep fighting your case. Okay. My original app had SSI and SSDI, and they're going to fix it for me since my last state mishandled my case. Okay, well, that sounds good. And errors are sometimes made. Oh, your son gets less than 1,000. What is the max for family? It'll depend. Depends on what the number holder, the worker, earned, and they have a whole calculation. It can be anywhere from 150% of dad's work record up to, I think, 180 or 81 or 85 or something like that. Higher income workers get closer to the 180 range up there. Lowers are usually stuck down by the 150. Snacks. All right, this goes towards mental health. If you got fired from every job you could do, that can actually, if you can get that information, say if you kept performance reviews, pink slips, if you have any supervisors that would write a letter about it, that's really hard. Sometimes they're not going to. You know, if you start getting into weaker evidence of that, it could be, you know, a family friend or something. However, that's considered kind of conflicted evidence. But good proof, if you can, you know, mental illness and getting fired from jobs sometimes is a big problem. If your jobs lasted 5 years each, it's not going to be seen as a big problem because you could sustain that work for 5 years. If it's under 6 months, certainly. If it's under a year, I think when there's a long pattern, yeah, you know, maybe even 2 years, it's a pattern. Doesn't mean you were disabled at that time because you were earning over SGA, but the history of getting fired, and then if you explain, you know, in that one report that you had to do or you will have to do, they do ask you if you've ever been fired from a job due to, I think it's kind of clear it's due to not being able to get along or whatever. And that's the place to put it. You might even want to give you a small space. Maybe for something like that, I would attach a piece of paper if I could succinctly state this job in, you know, 2022, I was terminated because I got in a fight with 2 coworkers for the 3rd time. Or in 2021, I lost that job because I kept having breakdowns and have to go to the bathroom crying, and I would be in there for a half hour, and they said I was missing too much work. I mean, whatever the case may be. If mental health symptoms cause you to get fired a lot, I think it can be really helpful. It's like a non-medical form of evidence. It's not going to ride the day, but it can be a really pivotal, particularly if it's from a credible source. If there's any documentation that goes towards it, like maybe you were fired by email and you kept the email. The sad thing is a lot of times people are so upset when they get terminated, they throw out the paperwork because it's a bad memory. But, you know, hopefully you have something there. Or if you were friends with a coworker, like you might have been okay with one coworker there, but it was other ones you had problems with, and that person could do up an SSA 795 explaining, you know, he had troubles, you know, doing this on the job because this would happen to him and he would react like this, or, you know. So, I mean, we use those kind of statements for coworkers or supervisors that are willing for physical stuff that prevents someone from performing their job very well. So you can certainly do it for mental. Okay. Furry Plan says, since I became disabled when I was younger, is it the same amount when I hit retirement? You haven't, if you prevail, see, this is the thing. If you're found disabled back when you were younger, then all the 0 years of work after are not going to be used to pull down your average monthly lifetime earnings upon which your percentage of retirement would be based. Your PIA, your primary insurance amount for Social Security generally. But if you were disabled but they don't find you disabled back when you were younger because you couldn't quite establish it, but they find you disabled way further, these are not all disabled years and in between. And those zeros are going to count to drag down your benefit rate. So the retirement rate that you would be expecting, but if you go in your would not be holding true if you're relying on something you saw when you were younger as an estimate. So you want to go in now and download your earnings statement. If it had, well, you're already filed, so they probably took out your estimate, unfortunately. But that's where, for everybody else, you can see your estimated retirement amount, and I think disability amounts maybe, from that downloaded earnings statement. But once you apply, they take it out, and you can't see that. You can see your earnings over the years, but you can't see the estimate, which is frustrating because so many people have started a filing and then they contact me and I'm like, darn, you can't even see what you can expect because they don't even know, and they're like, well, what am I going to be getting and what will the back benefit? I can't tell you the estimated back benefits because I don't know what your amount is. Hi, Mr. Vincent. Home dialysis qualifier SSDI. I just had a guy recently who did 12 hours a day at home. By the way, he did that while he was working for a spell, or it might have been to a lesser degree. I'm trying to recall. This is like a year ago. But I don't know, remember, it's the stage and stuff. I think it's going to be a very good indicator, and I don't want to speak to the listing without having it in front of me. But this is a younger individual, and we did prevail. So, and we didn't have to go to hearing or anything. But so I think it is a good one. So, I mean, not a good thing, but a good piece of evidence that would potentially interfere with you going to work. And plus, I mean, his symptoms from some of the stuff that I think medications and stuff and transplant were really horrific. So, he was a worker, and it was all clear. So home dialysis will be very, very important, I think. Furry, if you want to hash this out at the end of the time frame, I'm going to cut off questions at 3 o'clock. I know I went really long last week because there were still more questions, but I think that's kind of not fair. So, people that come late, it's just one of the prices of not being there when it starts because it goes first in, first out. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Can you cover compassionate allowance? And if your cancer is on the list, how to get the attention to it? When you file your application, tell your diagnosis, which cancer it is. When they see cancer, they often will reach back out and, find out which stage or whatever, if you didn't include it. You could put a remark. They have, I think, things that pull out words. So when they see that diagnosis in your application, they will pull it out. If you are concerned about it, I would go to the compassionate allowance list and get the exact wordage that they use for that particular diagnosis, if that's the one that fits you, and stick it in there, and they will pull it out. You could even say in your remarks, like, this, I believe this is a compassionate allowance. They probably pull out that word too, compassionate allowance. So for sure, don't leave that one out, and don't be, vague about it. But give the technical term that's in the listings, if it's what you have. Thanks. You're welcome for grandbabies. Okay. Hi, Dwayne. Nice to see you. 60 years old in Texas. Been waiting 14 months for initial. I complained to state rep office. Then my case was moved to Arkansas. And Arkansas had my case for 6 months. These wait times are ridiculous. Yeah, they are. Hopefully that's going to be improved upon. It's been bad for a number of years now on initial and recon, which it hadn't been a problem for the whole time I was practicing until about couple years ago, I'd say. And then suddenly, well, you know, the Social Security Administration a year or two ago, I'm not even sure when it was, a year or two, whenever it was, they did a hiring freeze, and that regulation freeze is still in effect. And hopefully that will be lifted soon once they figure out, you know, where the dead weight is and whatnot. But, and then they could hire good workers and all that good stuff and properly train them and all that. Because right now they are overloaded. I think there was that, I think, big resignation, and combine that with a hiring freeze. My goodness. Yeah. I don't know that moving into Arkansas was going to help you any, but power to you. And the wait times are ridiculous. I can't agree with you more. Oh, you're welcome, Smalley. Nice to see you. Okay, this is about appeals counsel. Hello, Stephanie. When the appeals counsel remands a case back to ALJ and recommends a CE if warranted, does the ALJ have to get a CE? And why would the ALJ not have a ME at the hearing? I will tell you that it's very rare for me to see an ME at a hearing. It's just rare. I think if they think you could meet a listing, but not necessarily, it's not flat out clear to the judge, he might have an ME. But I rarely see an ME. We see vocational experts, but not MEs. Does the ALJ have to get a CE if the appeals counsel remands it back and recommends a CE if warranted? Well, the recommendation was a CE if warranted. So that suggests to me they're not forcing the ALJ to get a CE. However, if your medical records are not clear on a particular impairment, maybe the severity thereof, that might be why they suggested a new CE. If he doesn't get the CE and he denies you, depending on how it connects with that impairment, I think that could be something that would not look very good for him. And of course, you'd probably be appealing it to the appeals council again. And then they'd probably remand it back to a totally different judge. But yeah, it looks like they're recommending it, but it says if warranted. I see that language a lot. He'll probably get a CE just to cover his bases, and then he can do what he wishes, if he follows the rules. There might have been other things in there that they told him to do. Hi, Valerie. Valerie Woodson, good afternoon. What is a non-medical review about or for? I just heard you say you didn't like those. Well, I don't mind proper reviews, but the big issue that we've had the last, year and a half or so now, it's been a long time, is that when a person is done getting their medical whole thing decided, when they don't know what the decision is, they get a message saying, hi, we're sending you back to the so-and-so office, like field office, for a non-medical review. This could take X amount of days. And the theory goes, if you didn't pass the medical review, why are they doing a non-medical review? Non-medical review normally would be the things that are the non-medical things you need to prove for a case. SSD, were you insured for SSD? SSI, were you poor enough for SSI? That stuff is the non-medical review. So if a person didn't win on medical, they can't win their case. Why are you doing a non-medical review? I don't even think they are. I think that's like I don't know. We haven't heard any word on it, but I think it's a glitch. They haven't taken the time to fix it. It's caused so much energy and time loss from consumers who are worried about it and ask about it, and anxiety, over it. They think that they won because I'm going on a non-medical review. I must have won medical. But with this messaging, it's not being sent out, in my opinion, where it should be. It's getting sent out to everybody once it gets kicked out of a DDS. It makes no sense. But then again, many things don't, right? Okay. They take it out now. Miss Frantic says, hi, Miss Frantic. I finally got a court date for April. Good for you. I filed over 2.5 years ago. Yep. Do most people, if they're going to get it on the first court round, or do they typically have to go through 3 stages? Well, you're on the 3rd stage, which is ALJ. I'm not sure what your question is. Are you saying, am I going to get denied on ALJ and have to refile and then do that whole thing again and again? Like the whole thing 3 times? Or are you saying 3 stages? It says 3 stages, so you are at the 3rd stage. So, yeah, clearly you had to go through the 3rd stage. And I would say at least half people go to the 3rd. The whole going to the ALJ is the 3rd stage. Probably at least half. I haven't looked at the waterfall chart lately. Last time I did, which is probably over a year ago, it was like 38% prevailed on initial, 15 on recon, and the rest have to go to ALJ. And then a certain portion of those prevail, and a certain portion of those don't. Those numbers may have been tweaked a little since. I don't know if it's up, down, or where it is at. But I also think that of the ones that prevail early, and I'm sorry for the younger people here, I have a feeling that they are people over 50 and potentially people over 55. They're going to have a higher portion of that 38% that went on initial. It's just my gut feeling. I don't have any documentation, but it stands to reason. Sadaka. Okay, I hope I didn't butcher that. I'm assuming it's a silent T, right? Your husband's applying for SSDI and you're wondering how to get on compassionate allowance. I just talked about compassionate allowance. You don't apply for it. You apply for SSD and you mention all of your impairments. And if they are compassionate allowances, the system will pull it out. I did mention to the other fellow that asked that if it were me, I would probably, you definitely put it in. I maybe even would, whatever your doctor describes it as, like how he, because I think one diagnosis can kind of be said in a few different ways. I would do it the way your doctor says it and or do it the way that it's on the compassionate listings. So go to that section of the SSA site and use the way their verbiage for that diagnosis that you know is what you have. Okay. And that way it will be pulled because it's going to be, artificial intelligence. And maybe put in your remarks that these impairments that I noted, X, Y, and Z, are compassionate allowances. So please expedite this, right? And consider it under compassionate allowances. Trish asks, if the DLI, date last insured, is December of 2019, if I go back to work now, how does that change the DLI? It will depend on where your credits were earned before you stopped working in December 2019. Presumably, if you worked steady and earned all 4 quarter credits, Trish, prior to stopping, you had all 4 for 2019, and for the years before that, I would tend to think that your DLI is 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 was the end of 2024. So if you go back now, let's say you go back in 2025 and you earn just enough for 4 credits. So you earn 7,200 or whatever the amount is. And you get your 4 credits. That should buy you to the end of 2025 if your credits in the past are where I just noted, solid and steady for a year up until 2019 for at least the past several years or the 5 years previous. If 2019 to 2014, all the 4 credits are there each year, which can happen on very part-time work, guys. It doesn't take a lot of work to get all your credits. You will buy 1 year. You ended at end of 2024, Trish. Now you're going to be end of 2025 because you just bought yourself another year. Do that in 2026. Same thing. Well, actually, I take that back. Yeah. Because remember, your 2015 credits are going to be scrolling off. And you're just going to have 16, 17, 18, 19. That's only 4 years worth. For that 16 credits. That 2025 year is going to give you your new 20. And 26 will give you. So you're going to have to keep working and getting 4 credits, ideally, for the next 5 years to then buy yourself a bigger window. Instead of always chasing the 1 year, you will then be bumped. You will have the 5 years. And if I'm thinking of my chart right, and then you'll be out another 5 years. But as of now, you would not, because every year you have is something scrolling off. I think. I'm trying to picture it in my head on short notice. Okay. Mr. Vincent, student loans are not automatically forgiven once you're in SSDI, only because SSDI is not a permanent benefit. It lasts as long as you're disabled. So many people recover and go back to work. But if yours is the kind that isn't going to, and sometimes evidence of that is the 5 to 7 year diary, mine, medical improvement not expected, you can use that. And that is, I think, one of the criteria they look at. I had a video on that once a long time ago. I just don't recall the details, but it's in the list someplace. But you have to apply for the discharge, it's called, and show your goods. So, and again, I think there is something about if there's a 5 to 7 year mine. Think about it. If there's a 3 year diary date, that means your medical improvement is expected and it's not permanent, and they're not going to forgive student loans for a temporary disability because you'll be back. You'll be able to go back to work and pay off school loans. School loans is one of my pet discussions sometimes when I'm venting, because I think the whole school loan system has been a total scheme ripping off people. That's not to say I believe in school loan being forgiven for everybody at the expense of the taxpayer. I think it should be done in a different way, where it actually goes to the people who made the profit from it. But anyway, whole nother story for a different day. Where am I at here? Oh, Charlene, it's a cold. I know. I was just complaining before because we all had the flu type of thing going around at Christmas time, my whole family. And I thought, oh, I got my cold out of the way for the season. But then I got this like yesterday. I don't know. But I think pretty sure it's cold. I do get little allergies, but nothing like this, Miss Frantic, yeah, you've already gone through 2 of those 3 levels of the Social Security disability process: initial, recon, and now you're at ALJ. That would be the 3 levels, if that's what he's referring to. Okay. But technically, if you get denied by ALJ, you can appeal to the appeals council. And if you get denied by appeals council, you can appeal to federal district court. If you don't go to appeals council, or if you do and you get out of appeals council, you can file a new claim. You can't file it while you're in. Sorry, looks like my son. He's gonna have to text me. So sorry. Okay. No worry, Sadaka. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Sadaka, if you're looking for a consultation time, I would just tell you to email. You can do contact@joydisability.com, and someone here will get back to you on the directions to do that, and then you'll see what something like that costs, okay? Not a problem. Okay, looks like we're good. Looks like we're good. Looks like we're through the questions, guys. So that's good. Anybody have anything else they need to touch on before we blow out of here? I will start working on my brief again. I really want to get it in today. Why is that not going? Oh, I gotta scroll. God, I'm looking at the chats. Oh, Sadaka, am I Jewish? Well, I like to think I am. I say the word shalom a lot. And it's funny because I have a grandmother from Germany who I thought was Jewish. She would be my great-grandmother, actually. And I did meet her, I think, when I was, but I barely remember. So whether I am or not, I'm not sure. But I do say shalom all the time. And yeah. Let's see. There's a few more questions here. Non-review is done on both. Can you request your function report from SSA? Well, Justin, I'm curious. Can I request my function report from SSA? If you filled it out, don't you have a copy of it? You know what I mean? Like, did you keep a copy when you filled it out? Or are you saying, I want to do a function report. Do I request it from the SSA? You can get it right online. If you just Google SSA-3373, you can get a blank copy. I always suggest people do this that are pro se, because then they can start preparing on how they're going to fill it out. And fill out a draft and, potentially change it or adjust it if they, think of a reason why they should. Leslie Rockin', hello. Good to see you. Thanks for popping in. Valerie says, Valerie Lozano, I've been on SSDI for years, and my daughter, who had a TBI at 17, I'm sorry to hear that, has been on SSI, and now she's collecting a portion of her benefits from my SSDI as an ADC. I think you mean DAC, DAC, disabled adult child. How can I have her collect only on SSDI? So it sounds like you want her to collect on her own work record and not yours. Is that what you're saying, Val? I've been on SSDI for years, and my daughter. Is she collecting, is the DAC she's collecting from you enough to take her off of SSI altogether? The only way she can collect SSDI on her own record is for her to start working part-time. Even if she does it, let's say she can't really work without a super, I don't know what the extent of her TBI is. Sounds pretty severe, though, if she's been on SSI for a very long time. But if there's some sort of subsidized work she can do, and, maybe an employer that hires disabled people to do really simple things, and she gets paid, and she stays under SGA, and potentially even under TWP, if you're going to be super cautious, and then she will eventually get her credits and, have the right amount for her age for SSDI, and then her her DAC can be now SSDI under her own record. So instead of DAC or part and part, depends if one's higher, she's going to get the highest amount, but she might then get her own SSDI and pulling off your DAC. I'm wondering why you're asking. Do you have other people that would be dependents that would be collecting off your record, and you want to not have it so thinned out? That would make sense. So the more your daughter could collect on her own work record when she has one, would work to that effect. Even if it's not fully. But let's say she has 500 on her own work record and 250 from yours. That's 500 less than she's taken off from DAC. that would be still in your family max to go to other dependents if that's what you're getting at, which I don't know if that is. Okay. SGM, hi there. Good to see you. Your wife turned 62 in August. I'm August as well. I'm on disability. How will they compute her SS? So whatever your primary insurance amount, if you're having her collect at 62 SG, you know she's going to take a really small portion, right? Normally she'd be eligible for up to 50% of your benefit as a spouse if she waited till she was full retirement age. But if you're going to have her collect early, take an extra 60 payments early, they're going to shave off for every month she collects early, and more shaved off of the total amount she gets each month. And she's going to probably get somewhere in the range of, instead of 50% of yours, more like 30 or 35% of yours. So just do that math. It's one of the, negatives to her collecting retirement early. I hope that helped. Hope that answered your question. Oh, I see. Okay, so going back to Justin, I want to know if their function report matches what I filled out. You mean you're wondering if they altered your function report? I for sure know that I've never seen them do that in 20 years. Ever. It's just right in your file. Or are you saying you filled out a one online, and is the one that they would send you or will send you, is it the same one? Those things do not change. I see different versions by year up top, but the questions really don't change. So, and I sometimes use one from 3 years ago in my template of what my people are, we're all working on together. And I'll send that one in because it's got all the same information, all the same questions as what their current one says. I've never seen them change in any kind of substance way. So I wouldn't worry about that. If that's what you're worried about, if you answer the right questions, you're probably good to go. And if you're thinking, well, maybe they fudged my answers, I want to see that, I've never seen them do that. They have no incentive to do that. It would be obvious. And it's all scanned. It's really, I don't know how you sent yours in, but or maybe you haven't sent it in yet, and I think it's the other question, right? Whether the questions you answered is, because maybe it's different versions you're looking at, one's from 2020, one's from 2024, or something like that. Don't even worry about it. It's going to be this exact same questions. I can say that with certainty. Oh, you're welcome, B Names. Congratulations. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you for making this content. It certainly helped getting a fully favorable decision after 4+ years of misery. Is back pay usually just one lump sum payment? Yes. If it's SSD, it is. If it's SSI, no. It will be broken up. Okay. Hi, Willie. You had your initial today, and now you're looking forward to the waiting game. I'm not sure what your initial, what do you mean initial? You mean you filed your application? Is that what you mean? Or your lawyers did, maybe. Justin. All right, here, guys. I just put myself in sedentary category, but I have a feeling that they have me in light. Yeah, some people say, well, I know I'm sedentary, therefore I win, right? Well, it doesn't matter what you know, right? It matters what they decide. And then when you disagree, that's when you appeal, because they got it all wrong. That's the way I look at it. So, yeah, I don't know what age category and stuff you're in, but I see a lot of under 50s. While they could be denied, this is the funny part, guys. It seems like a tactic almost. They would be denied if they were found to be able to do sedentary work because they're under 50, right? And assuming they're not mentally unable to work at all. I often see them getting tagged at light. I mean, they could have such a severe back impairment, they clearly can't be on their feet all day. And they'll put them at light. And I think the reason is so that if someone overturns them and says, no, we're going down to sedentary, they will still be denied. So they put a high bar. And then if you hit over 50, if whoever's adjudicating you at that time, say you applied again or you are now at an ALJ stage or something, I just have this sneaky suspicion that they can, it helps them keep you at light. So at 52, you're still denied because, hey, those guys said he was light, and I agree. I don't know. Is that my suspicious nature? But I see the most ridiculous light RFCs for someone who's like 48 and really falling apart because they don't want to put him at sedentary. They would still be denying him by putting it sedentary at that time, but they know he's soon to be 50 and they want to make sure it's ammo for denial later if someone later chooses to do it. I'm not saying that they're saying that someone should choose to do it, but it's almost like they're giving them ammo should they feel the need to do it. I don't know. Maybe I'm a mind reader. Catherine, hi there. Welcome. On the grid. I'm 53, have a bachelor's degree. Does that because of my education, I can do other work? Not really. I just had this discussion with somebody else. I don't know if he's here today. How old is your bachelor's degree? Old degrees are nothing. They're think about it. What we learn, jobs change so fast and school changes so fast accordingly. Yeah, that old bachelor's, unless you got it like last year or the year before, probably won't matter. And you were already considered of reasonable education if you already got through high school, even if that was 20 years ago. So don't worry about the bachelor's degree too much unless you just got it. And it supposedly provides direct entry into skilled work. Typically, I guess they'd probably say most college level learning, even though it could be in underwater basket weaving, they probably say that puts you into skilled work because you'll be hired as a college graduate. But the degree that's old is not of what's in the current labor market, right? You learn how to, do computer programming in 2000. Can you imagine how moot that learning is now? Same with medical. Medical's changed. Well, science, all that stuff's changed. So I wouldn't worry about it too much unless you just graduated. The first interview. Willie, interview with who? Justin, you're 50. Okay, I forget what you said before. Yeah, so you think they put you at light so they didn't have to award you at sedentary. Of course, they don't just automatically award you if you're sedentary. They have to find that you can't do your prior work and that you can't transfer the skills from your prior work. But assuming that stuff is in there, yeah, then they stick you at light. I have had initials put my people at light and then on recon. By that time, the person was able to get updated medical diagnostics, so we could argue that those show that the person couldn't be doing standing at. They can maybe do the lifting, but they can't do standing at 6 hours a day. That's a lot of standing. So keep up the fight, Justin, for sure. Hopefully your DLI is way out in the future, so you have time to, build and all that good stuff. The interview. Willie, the interview that SSA asked the reason and bank account information. Oh. I thought you were represented, Willie. He's talking about his first encounter with the SSA. I'm going to put it up. The interview that SSA asks the reason and bank account info. You're having the SSA take your application? You're not represented? Yikes. Okay. Yeah, it is the waiting game now, but you got to keep them informed, whoever you're dealing with, of all your medical visits. I would. and really get really aggressive with those treatments so you have more evidence of what's stopping you from working today. A bachelor's degree, and this is for Catherine, over 20 years old, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Even if you didn't have it, you're still considered not limited in education. So you're still the same. It's not like recent stuff for that specific. Like if you just took a bookkeeping or an accounting degree and you could go be an accountant and you're relegated to sedentary work, that recent accounting degree is going to be really important. And that could make you be able to do other work when you had no transferable skills because you prior to that did unskilled work. But in this case, it's 20 years old, so it wouldn't matter. Good luck in your case, Willie. He's 62 in April, will be. Disabled veteran, back, knees, and leg issues. Well, do the best you can, Willie. If you're not represented, you might just be fine, right? I mean, they're going to have all your VA records. Make sure they get them. I would follow up with your adjudicator. If you don't have an attorney, follow up with your adjudicator. Make sure they have your full set of VA records. That's been trickier lately, it seems. Yeah, that's what I would do. Hi, Margaret. She wants to know, or she's asking, aren't the payments released the same time the lawyer payer is given? That would probably be a big no. There's something not right about it not on mine. It's not a humorous situation when I need my funds released and there's them holding it. Oh, yeah, I know. I don't know how long it's been for you, but yeah, sometimes the payments are released and the lawyer has to wait. It's just because someone didn't click the button. It's incompetence up there. That's what I think it is. Sometimes a lawyer gets paid first because they're still figuring out certain things on your payments, and they know that the percentage amount, what it's going to be, particularly if you have a higher back benefit amount. If they know yours is going to be at least $50,000, they know they can send the $9,200 to the attorney because it's never going to go higher, and they're never going to. You're never going to have any offsets that would bring it lower, where the attorney would get lower. So, but yeah, usually it's not on the same day. And I see it both ways. I see, I've probably been waiting a year on a $6,000 lawyer fee payment from the SSA, and my client has long since been paid. And she's so mad. She's such a good girl. She's like, I want to cut you a check. I'm like, no. I'm like, they're holding it. They even said it in the letter. I'm like, you are not. And I wouldn't take it from her anyway because they said they're holding it. But yeah, it can be crazy. Sometimes we have to keep writing them. And sometimes eventually we have to get to our congressperson and say, can you please ask them to press the button, please? So we can pay our mortgage and keep our lights on. It's a kangaroo situation sometimes. But I'm sorry if you've been waiting a long time, Margaret. That's frustrating. Sometimes you can call Sugar Not Vinegar and ask, is there something you need from me? I see it's being held up. And if so, and do you have a lawyer? And was it, do you know if the lawyer was paid? Yeah, don't know what the situation is, but they're not usually paid exactly the same day. But usually it's within a few weeks at least. In my case, that one case, it's been a year. Okay, well, you have a representative, not an attorney. They're probably going to do just fine by you. They have every incentive to do just fine by you. So keep your chin up, okay? I'm sure they're very good. Well, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but I presume they're very good. Yeah, Margaret, I don't know why your back pay is not there, and you say your attorney has been paid. By the way, sometimes in their letters, they say, you're going to get this amount, and we paid your attorney this amount. And they didn't pay the attorney. So be careful what you read in the letters. They're not always fully accurate. It's what they assume someone did. But if your attorney said he was paid, then yeah, I mean, sometimes we have to shoot a letter off 50 times to try to get them to, tell us what's going on. Okay. Moni. I wish I had a disability lawyer when I first filed. I was clueless on all this information. Well, hopefully you're getting to where you need to be. So, with or without. Margaret, if you get a chance, post up here, Margaret Neanover. Just put up here when did you get your award letter? What's the date on your award letter? I'm curious how long. When you say it's been a really long time. Oops, sorry guys, I gotta wait my nose. And then I could maybe let you know if that's considered really long. Okay. Valerie Woodson, I was so clueless about all this as well when I filed. I didn't get a reply. Disability lawyer, etc. Would it be too late now if the decision isn't favorable? Are you at ALJ stage, Valerie? And you're saying you don't have a representative. I think that's what you're saying. No, you just get them for the, I mean, if your DLI is in the future, that's ideal. Then you could just refile with a lawyer. Or the lawyer might be willing to take it, file an AC claim if it seems like it should be. It's a little tough when the lawyer wasn't in on your case though, because they can't really when I do my AC briefs for my cases, and they are fortunately few and far between, but I know the case so well, so I know what the judge did wrong, in my opinion, like what he didn't, look at and substantiate and stuff like that. But that's not really something that's readily easy to do when you haven't represented down below. But AC generally has an obligation to review the whole case anyway, not pursuant to any kind of, they did this wrong, because they do them for lay people all the time without lawyers. So they're supposed to be able to find the errors if there are any. So that's another avenue there. But either way, yeah, you can get a lawyer whether you go to the AC appeal or you decide not to do AC and just refile. That of course will depend on what your DLI is. You want that DLI to be in the future. January 10th, Margaret, your award letter. Okay. I know it seems like a really long time. That is about 19 days ago that you got your award letter and you haven't seen your back pay. That is not unusual. Was that an SSD back pay, Margaret, or an SSI back pay? But because your lawyer did get paid, if it's SSD, there's nothing that says that you can't call your field office and inquire. Now, your case is not actually at your field office. It's probably at a payment center because the field office does not pay the checks for the SSD. But sometimes they can send a little note up to the payment center and see if they can get a match under there. Didn't get her up, Valerie. Okay. It's gone on non-medical. Okay, so you didn't get a decision, Valerie, right? A decision is what's made by an ALJ. You got a determination, and you don't know what it is. You're at the initial or recon stage. Yeah, you can certainly get somebody. Ideally, you're at the initial stage so that the person that you get has the ability to and the time to give you advice on how to improve what they're seeing, and you can take the steps needed. Usually it's about treatment and follow-up and certain diagnostics and, hey, try this avenue. And that's what gets the evidence a little different, a little stronger. If it's on recon, you can still do that, but get them right away. January 2025, yes, but sent the letter a few days saying he was paid and they held mine. Oh. Possible adjustments. Margaret's referring to, she got an award, I think SSD, and they haven't paid her. It's been 19 days since she's been awarded, and she hasn't seen her back benefits check, and she really needs it for her mortgage. Possible adjustments. I wish they would do these faster. They often do, although a couple of weeks isn't really the longest amount of time, but those things would include, do you have any outstanding federal debts? It could possibly be school loans. It could be, do you have any arrears? You were supposed to pay alimony or child support that are in arrears. Those things are things that can be offset against back benefits. Federal debts, I suppose, of any kind of nature. IRS debts, maybe, if you didn't pay taxes. So they check into all those things. But oftentimes I see it faster. So it is frustrating when it's, 2.5 weeks in. You can call them. Sometimes it's, we don't know because we can't see, right? Like, is someone really just sitting down and not, doing what they're supposed to do. If it goes too long, you can ask your lawyer will probably do the same thing I would do and send letters like, can you please release the money to the plaintiff, claimant? But if not, sometimes a congressperson will be like, they'll do a congressional inquiry and just say, this person says that they won and you haven't paid them. What's going on? And the mere inquiry is like a match under them to get it done and move it faster. I see that regularly when I have to use a congressperson. Hi, Matthew. Nice to see you. He wants me to explain how one can apply for SSDI today, and they will have to start his application date as of today, even though I don't finish it until 5 months later. Matthew's referring to the protective filing you have when you initiate the very beginning of an application. Safest way to do it is online. Get to the point where you get your reentry number, print it, write it down, save it. I would print it so you have proof that they actually sent you that number. I print it usually to my computer. I don't really print it out on paper. And then you have actually up to 6 months to get the full application in. I would pretend it's 5 months though, because people tend to blow it when they start leaving things to the last day. But that's what that is. It's a protective filing date, and that applies to SSDI. For SSI, if you make a contact with the SSA about applying or start the SSDI process online, you have 2 months. Might be 60 days to get your SSI application in full. They do not give you the same amount of time as SSDI, where they give you 6 months. It's great. It's really great for people who have delayed in filing so that they have an onset date that they're going to allege that's over 17 months ago, or if they're getting close to 17 months and you know that application is going to take some time in getting all the medical information together. Getting that protective filing means you can take a breather and take it slow. That's all. You're doing that paperwork. Thank you, Matthew. Valerie Woodson, what does DLI stand for? That stands for date last insured. For SSDI, everyone has a date last insured if they ever became insured from working. It's when your credits are no longer, enough credits are no longer recent enough to make you eligible or insured for SSDI insurance. You're not covered after that date because you stopped working and stopped earning those credits. We earn credits by paying those premiums. We pay those premiums by paying those SS taxes on our work activity income, our wages. You can find out your DLI. This is for everybody. It's so important, particularly if you don't know it at all and you have a case going on, or you are planning on filing, you definitely want to get this date. I have all of my clients get it for me since I can't get it for them. DLI, date last insured. You can call 1-800-772-1213. And whether you can find someone through a menu item or go directly to when you can get somebody on there, a live body, you ask for your date last insured for Social Security disability. Date last insured for Social Security disability. And sorry, my son just texted me. He has a wrestling match tonight. Yeah, I would find that out. I need it I need it. It helps us plan. It helps us warn you if you're coming low on it and what you can do about it. It's really important. DLI. Because remember, Social Security disability is term insurance. And when you stop paying in because you stopped working, you are no longer insured for it. Retirement is not. Once you're vested in retirement with your 40 credits, you're good. Those do not need to be recent. FLNC girl, how you doing? Can you tell me if it's okay to attend school while waiting for approval? Anything is okay as long as it's not indicative of not being disabled like you said you were. It's an activity, so if it's an activity that shows that you are not as limited as you said. So it really depends on your case and what you said you can and cannot do. So I can't really be more specific than that. It's not an outright bar. I know some lawyers will tell their people you cannot attend school, blah, blah, blah. I've had a lot of people in school with cases. But your other evidence and the extent of your school has to be commensurate with what you're claiming you can and cannot do. Okay. Hi, Michelle. Does a receptionist job count as unskilled work? It really depends. There's different kinds of receptionists. And it could be semi-skilled. If it's really sophisticated, I suppose it could be skilled. But usually that might be a composite job, perhaps. I would tend to think it might not be unskilled. They have a script to say. They have to deal with customers. I think it will depend. And when I go into like some of the job sources, there's various kinds of receptionists. So with different kinds of titles. So I don't have that in front of me, but look maybe under the DOT. You know, it might be, they vary so much, you know. Some receptionists are doing really sophisticated work on the phone. Other ones are not, you know, they're just like, hello, he's in a meeting. Can I take a message? You know, so it really depends. Hi, John. Nice to see you again. My local office is reviewing my non-medical. They've had it for 2 weeks. I did receive a check from my employer for vacation pay on January 10th. Should I contact my office to report pay or wait? You know, I would just wait. They already made the medical determination one way or another, it sounds like. So I would wait when they contact you. You could tell them that, but that's the kind of thing. I would always keep proof that it's vacation pay, so it doesn't count, assuming this is SSD. And I usually like to send things in a way that I know I have a receipt that they received it. So I like to do things in writing. That can be by fax, and you have a fax confirm and a copy of what you sent them, or the more expensive way of certified return receipt. For something like that, for an appeal or, well, yeah, not necessarily an appeal, but for applications where they need a wet signature, I wouldn't do it by fax. Matthew asks, as long as I start and save an SSDI application today before the end of the month, like if I apply today, will I get benefits for this month if I finish the app within 5-6 months from today? When you start to get paid, Matthew, depends on your established onset date. So when you apply, you allege an onset date, and later on they are going to make a determination of your established onset date. That's if you prevail. And whatever date lines up, they're never going to pay you starting at a month more than 12 months before the month you apply. So if you apply in January, like today, getting your protective filing date, that'll count. And if they end up finding that you were disabled 8 months ago, 8 months prior to that, let's say, trying to do my calendar math here. Let's say it's June of 2024, they found you disabled on this new application you're doing. The first 5 full months are going to be not disabled. I mean, sorry, not payable. So if you file if you were disabled in June, sometime in June, the first full month after that is July, August, September, October, November, unpaid waiting period, right? I said November as the last, right? December would be your first back benefit paid. So you'd get paid for December 24, January 25, and all the months going around till they actually made that determination. I hope that answers your question. You're welcome, Margaret. Oh, Valerie, no apologies. Are you kidding? Let me tell you something, Valerie. I didn't even know there was such a thing as SSD before I started working in this field. I mean, half of my attorney friends don't even know. You know, well, they know now because they know me. But it was such an unknown thing. They don't teach us this in high school. They don't even teach us that it exists. We don't even know what our what our taxes are going to. So the Social Security tax, right? Maybe we all thought it was for retirement, well, and didn't know that they had these other programs like disability and survivors and our dependents and all that good stuff. So do not apologize to me. I was very ignorant on it back in the day. Okay, so here we have Valerie's more specifics. Thanks, Valerie. She's 66, took Social Security at 62. So you took that nice big chunk of a discount forever. And I say nice loosely, right? I'm sure you don't like it. During the COVID, worked during as well. Plenty of work. Oh, worked during. Oh, that's cool. So are you disabled now, or I mean, are you of full retirement age now at 66 plus? I know my full age. I'm 57, and by the time it's 67 for me. So we're very, not very far apart in age. So everything is between 66 and 67 for everybody going forward. I know there are some people that still think retirement age is 65. Yikes. I think it's been like decades since that was true. Nobody's full retirement age is at 65. Nobody who's not yet applied for retirement. Okay, so Matthew wants to know how much of the SSDI application does he have to fill out online to get to the point where I will get a reentry number? It's so quick, Matthew. It's like your name, your address, when you last worked, what city and state or country, city and country you were born in, date of birth, obviously your social security number. They basically need to connect you to you in their files so they can attach this protective filing to an existing person. So it's not far. I do it with people right up. I mean, I'll have someone on the phone and I'll be like, oh, I think we should get your protective filing date. Then you can decide if you want to go forward. It will expire in 6 months if you choose not to do it, blah, blah. But at least this way they're protected. They can think about whatever they're going to think about. They can go use another lawyer if they wanted to, whatever they want to do, but they got a protective filing date. It's particularly important if it's the end of the month. Like right now, guys, if you're thinking about filing and you are, let's say you're more than 12, 13, 14 months since you last worked, go get yourself a protective filing date. It'll take you 3 minutes. It's really quick. I mean, I do it for people just, pro bono, because, it's just, it could be a whole, unless they did it, if they waited 3 days, now they potentially lose a whole month of benefits that are going to scroll off the board of payability. The board of payability. I hope that answered your question, Matthew. Super easy. You can get it yourself. Super, super easy. Official, how are you? Nirvana. Does it work to my benefit that I have almost unreadable handwriting when filling out the function report? If your prior work, if you're alleging a severe hand impairment versus just being sloppy, if you can't do your prior work because of that passes you step 4, are there plenty of jobs where you don't need to have good handwriting? Yes, because very few do we have to write these days. So while it could be to your benefit, I don't think it's going to be that in and of itself will not hold a lot of water. Now, your hand impairments, if you have hand impairments like severe arthritis in your hands, or whatever else, that could be a lot more significant. And then that evidence of how bad it is could be optically useful. Valerie Woodson, you haven't worked since July of 2022. You're thinking of so 2022, that's 3 years ago. You're 66 now, right? So that would put you at 3 years ago, 63. Are you applying saying you were disabled as of July 2022? Do you have the goods for it? Because then, they're never going to pay. If you do prevail on that, they're not going to pay you back to July of 2022 because they only pay back 12 months before the date you applied. But maybe you would have a few months from 65 on. But you have to wheat or get off the pot. That's my Swedish for you. Wheat. Oh, John, thank you. You're welcome. I will just bring up one thing, John. I will wait for the results, then bring my pay stub to my local office, which is only 3 blocks from my house. I know that's tempting. I get a lot of people who are like, I can just walk it down there. It's cheaper, faster than sending it certified mail or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what? When you walk in, guess what happens? Contact. There's a contact sheet where they take notes. And if they say that you're walking and talking and, you know how to get to the file directions, you know how to look up their address, you're able to walk in, you can deal with the I don't know what your impairments are, but some people are better off not doing that. Not having a clerk in there write up a little thing about a claimant and their appearance, ability to talk, hear. Now, if you've already won your case, I forget if you said you did, then that might not be such an issue. They might not be doing contacts because a decision has already been made. You're not really I don't know. But I know for a fact that when people go in to do things when they're claiming, there's contact. I see them all the time in the file. And when it says nothing unusual, right? The Augustine. Okay. All right, Valerie. So you are 66 in December of 2025. So you're still 65, right? Haven't been able to work since July 22. Thought I'd get better to go back to work. Love my career, but haven't gotten any better. So finally filed for disability July of 2023. Oh, good. So are you still waiting? Sorry, I'm going to mix up everybody's answers. Yeah, cool. So they could feasibly pay you back to 2022. Awesome. That'd be a nice little check, wouldn't it? And if you're taking early retirement now, it would flip those months at least. So you wouldn't have the reductions that were caused by taking those months early. Those incremental months add up. All right, Augustine. If a medical diagnosis had been upgraded to something more complex, difficult, chronic during the initial medical review stage, is there a way to pass it? Yeah, call them. If you're unrepresented, you are your lawyer. You need to be on top of this. I would tell him. I would say, I've been back since, and now there's a whole new diagnosis and or a level of severity that it's at. Can you please order the updates? Or get the records yourself, but then they might be redundant. But yeah, that's what I would say about that. You have to, Augustine, because otherwise they're not necessarily going to know. If they already ordered records, they might not order them again to get updates if they feel like they're moving fast enough. So you're going to want them to know that differing information. FLNC girl, at the cognitive exam, it really depends on. It's usually just. It's like if you're talking about neurocog, sometimes those are tests. If you're talking about a mental CE, I actually have videos on that. If you can look it up, I think there's a playlist on it. But look up mental and under me, and it should bring you up those. Well, that might give you too broad of a list. But the mental CEs, we have a preparation thing on that, like things to look out for, things to recognize they are seeing, and how to be, really candid about things instead of being, shy about things that you might be embarrassed about and all that kind of stuff. Cognitive exams are a little different, because sometimes those are tests where you're actually like performing things. So I don't know how to explain that here. Just go in and give full effort, do the best you can, and just, really just be yourself. And don't hide anything. If you have any problems, don't try to pretend they don't exist. Some people are like, feel like they're at an interview for a job and they're trying to do the best job they can. And I'm like, and they're hiding things. I'm like, don't hide that. Don't hide that. They're so used to hiding things, right? Oh, December 2024. I got you. Same idea though, Valerie. John Stampa. So technically that is income, even though it was vacation pay owed to me. John, income doesn't matter if you're going for SSDI. It's only SSI that matters. What matters for SSDI is if you worked for it. So when they see it, they're probably taking taxes out of your vacation pay. Employers usually do. So the SSA is just going to see that you made this income. It's going to be reported this quarterly thing possibly. And they're going to say, he was still working for that company. And that's when you want them to know that it's vacation, that it was vacation pay. In your application, they even asked you, did you get any vacation pay after you applied? So I should not do anything because it will come up my tax for 2025. That's up to you. They tell us, and then you'll get clerks that'll say otherwise. But the actual official rules of the SSA are tell us. Well, tell us when you're working. But you're going to want to have the proof that it was not. They're going to inquire when they see it, most likely. And that's when you can address it if you want to. Or you can, since you haven't won yet, you can address it now and be like, I just want to, You're not a knucklehead. That's so funny. Yeah, FLNC. Don't hide things. We're always trying to put on our best face, right? But you don't want to do that when they need to know what what your impairments are. So, all right, guys, I think we're good to end it. Agree or disagree? Agree. We are at 3:10. All right, sound good? No more questions? I think we got through them all. We've been on here for 2 hours and 10 minutes. I'm going to go and blow my nose. But I'll be here next week, I think the plan is. So definitely join Wednesdays, 1:00 p.m., and I will see you guys there. Sound good? All right. Thanks, guys. Don't worry, John, you're not going to upset the apple cart necessarily. But it's not a rush. It's not like you have to. It's not like you're working, like you said. If you're working, they'd be sending you the 820 or 821. And that affects, the review of the case. So it's not as big of a deal. So I don't want to make it to sound like it's more of a big deal than it is. Just know that you might have to address that later. Keep your documents. When you get that W-2 that says vacation pay, a little box, hold on to it. All right. Thanks, Valerie. I shall. You bet, FLNC. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.